Great leadership capabilities are based in great psychology, and psychology is typically pretty universal.
All healthcare organizations exist for the high patient outcomes.
You can show up as a leader in any role and any level.
But you can never teach somebody how to show up on time. You can never teach somebody the communication skills. Hi, and welcome to Talent Talk. I'm your host, Rick Martin, and I'm joined here today by Bijan Zandbod, and he is a Boston-based talent organizational effectiveness consultant. And Bijan, if you would, just tell us a little bit about yourself and just a little bit about your career journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me today, Rick. Really excited to be here. So I am Boston-based, as you mentioned. I work as a talent and organizational effectiveness consultant and coach. I've spent much of my career building learning and organizational development functions from the ground up at high growth medical and healthcare companies in the Boston-based area. Recently started my own consultancy practice where I offer coaching, training programs, custom talent initiatives that really help leaders scale their efforts, help maximize their talent and performance initiatives, and create customized talent programs such as succession planning, high potential programs, and any other kind of custom training or custom initiatives they need to scale their talent and maximize performance at their respective organizations.
Great. Well, that's a great segue into what we wanted to talk about today. And I know that you and I had a chance to meet before this, and I've been really excited about this particular episode because I think it speaks to the industry of healthcare as a whole. But if you would, let's just dive right into the topic and just let's focus on the role of human resources, talent acquisition professionals, leadership, and how their engagement and their leadership qualities and the things that they can do really impact positively patient outcomes.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually first started on this journey when I was in my first role building a learning and organizational development company function for a company based out of Lawrence, Massachusetts called Next Stage Medical. They have since been acquired by Fresenius Medical, but really trying to better understand how do strong leadership and management capabilities actually provide better healthcare and patient outcomes. In diving into this subject, I actually found that there were a number of studies that reinforce this fact. A few to mention in particular, the Journal of Nursing Management in 2018 found that transformational leadership positively influenced nurse-reported patient safety outcomes, including reversing adverse events. A 2017 study by the Annals of Family Medicine actually found that effective leadership and management were found to be essential enablers of quality improvement systems in primary care. A 2015 study by the National Institute of Health found that leadership training modules focused specifically on coaching, change management, and outcomes resulted in improved leadership skills, and that enhanced patient practice efficiency and indirectly improved patient care. A 2014 study found that organizations with high leadership quality actually had lower patient mortality, better financial performance, and higher patient satisfaction. Another study from 2013 in the Journal of Nursing Medicine actually found that effective nursing leadership specifically was associated with lower patient mortality, fewer medication errors, and higher patient satisfaction. And there are a number of others that go even further back in that. But as you can see, there are a number of studies that really reinforce the importance of strong leadership, strong management capabilities, and that actually having a very strong positive effect in terms of minimizing adverse patient events and improving patient care outcomes and patient satisfaction overall, as well as some of the other benefits we see as far as trying to drive higher financial performance as well and organizational performance as a whole.
Yeah. And I don't think that can be understated. I think that, obviously all healthcare organizations exist for the high patient outcomes, and they want to make sure that especially when you and I, if we, God forbid, ever get sick, that, we trust in the healthcare providers that we're going to. And so let's talk a little bit about some of your previous roles. I know you alluded to it in the intro, but talk about some of these leadership practices and some of the things that you have implemented from like a talent acquisition or HR perspective to really help either train your workforce or to sort of empower your workforce, and just talk about some of the leadership practices that you've put into place.
Yeah, absolutely. So to start from a talent acquisition stance, absolutely reinforcing the importance of clinical skills and procedural skills. That is definitely a requirement for the role and not to minimize those. But in addition to those, trying to reinforce the really important skills that come along with strong leadership capabilities, strong collaborative efforts that actually drive higher levels of performance, regardless of role, level, industry, sector, and things along those lines. In terms of leadership capabilities, there's a couple of different initiatives that I've really focused on, two that have stood out and really performed well over the test of time for me personally. The first one is a great book called Drive by Daniel Pink that focuses on three keys to motivation. Those three keys are mastery, autonomy, and purpose. And especially with being in the healthcare industry, I feel like that purpose one is really one that stands out and is really universal, regardless of what sector you're in within that healthcare industry. It's really easy to be able to connect to driving really strong patient outcomes, providing great quality of patient care, and in many instances, helping patients live a better life. So that purpose kind of comes in automatically. The autonomy and mastery are the other areas where leaders actually have a direct impact and effect on those other two drivers of motivation. So how are you helping your nursing staff and your clinical staff really drive that higher level of mastery through things like feedback, coaching, training opportunities, even mentorship initiatives I found can be a great way to share those really strong skill sets and strong capabilities. And those are absolutely things that you can also interview for and make part of the conversation upfront as you're going through hiring decisions. Autonomy, it's not necessarily saying, hey, giving everyone 100% autonomy in terms of every single decision they make, but where are there opportunities for autonomy, especially when it comes to managing projects or managing initiatives, managing those higher level things that take you past the day-to-day responsibilities to really help clinical staff and nursing staff advance their skills and capabilities overall. The second leadership model that I absolutely love, and I think it's one that has probably the strongest data backing behind it, is Gallup, and talking about how do we drive higher levels of engagement. Gallup has found through their studies of over 3.3 million employees across 183,000 businesses plus, and across 50 plus industries, that highly engaged employees actually have 10% higher customer loyalty and engagement. The companies have higher profitability. There's higher productivity, typically seen at 14% or higher. And what's more impressive is what they're not seeing. So they found that highly engaged employees actually have 78% less absenteeism, 21% lower turnover, and fewer quality errors, typically 30% or higher in terms of those quality errors that they can minimize. So it's a really great model to think about, how are you as a leader showing up and impacting your direct reports and your team members to drive higher levels of engagement. And Gallup has also found that 70% plus of whether or not an employee is engaged or not is directly attributed to the manager. So are you, as a manager or leader, providing things like purpose, that meaningful work? And I think, especially being in the healthcare industry, that comes through very naturally. But are you also doing things like providing development opportunities? Are you providing coaching and feedback opportunities to those individuals to reinforce where they're doing well and where there may be opportunities to change their approach or come at a different angle? Whether there's ongoing conversations that are taking place to reinforce their growth. Focus on strength is another one. So rather than talking constantly about deficiencies when it comes to performance, taking a slight shift in mindset and saying, where have you performed really well, or where are your strengths? And how can you leverage those in a different way to be successful in areas that you may feel like you're challenged or demotivated? And then finally, another one is caring managers. I've heard this often referred to as compassionate presence, and just thinking about, does this manager, does this leader actually genuinely care about me as a human being? Do they actually care about the personal challenges and struggles that we all go through on a daily basis? So again, a lot of things that managers and leaders can directly reinforce and encourage within their teams and practice within their teams if they dedicate the time. And that's often where I found, especially in the healthcare industry, that time becomes a challenge. But I always try and encourage leaders to balance that short-term and long-term focus. Yes, short-term, we may not always have the time to stop on a day-to-day basis to have those conversations with our nursing staff, to give feedback or check in and just see how they're doing. But how can we build those in as more structured meetings or structured approaches to make sure that those things are taking place and that you're really focused on who your team is as individuals and how they're performing, and how we can continue to accelerate their mastery, their purpose, their autonomy, and their growth.
Yeah, yeah, well said. And I think that there's something to be said about the multifaceted approach that you've talked about. Is that in addition to a workforce's need to upskill or to be felt valued, there is that definitive need that you've expressed for the leadership to also encourage that type of behavior and to be willing and able to learn and to upskill themselves in their leadership ability. So I think that speaks volumes because, you want to have, especially in the healthcare industry, a workforce that is compassionate and a workforce that is dedicated. And you want to have those employees, those clinical staff members, they want to feel like a valued member of your organization. And so it seems like you're saying the more that leadership staff can embrace that culture of nurturing and upskilling, I think it just ultimately betters the organization as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing that I really encourage with a lot of leaders who especially say that they're struggled and challenged with time, right? They have almost every hour of every day booked up and are stretched thin as is, that you don't always have to be the one that does all these tasks or actions. I always say you're responsible, but you don't have to be the one that's actually delivering the action. Rely on your team. And that can be a great way to build some of these capabilities and give your team additional areas to master their own skills and capabilities and collaborative efforts, like assigning somebody to be a mentor to the rest of the team. You as the manager don't have to be the mentor 100% of the time. How can you set up peer coaching opportunities or peer feedback opportunities, and really reinforcing the right kind of skills to give feedback in a way that people are going to be receptive to, and also make sure that each team member is open and receptive to that feedback so they can continue to grow their skills and capabilities. So it's a great way to think about it where, hey, as a manager, you're responsible for making sure it takes place, but you don't always have to be the one to do that or carry that burden independently as well.
Yep. No, that's great. I really appreciate that advice and that sentiment. So I think one of the questions that I would ask you, just from a HR talent acquisition leadership perspective, what are some of the things that these leaders can do now to make themselves better leaders? And what are some of the things that they can lean on to really dive into this journey of one, being able to be a better and more effective leader, and two, really drive that organizational mission of better patient outcomes?
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, I always encourage leaders to kind of let go of that idea that good quality leadership is going to be industry specific or really nuanced in that way. Great leadership capabilities are based in great psychology, and psychology is typically pretty universal. So try to look at and understand other leadership capabilities as it relates to driving higher levels of performance or driving motivation within your team and your staff. There are so many great resources out there, whether it's Harvard Business Review, books like Drive by Daniel Pink, that is one of my personal favorites. Using Gallup as a resource, they're an industry leader when it comes to understanding engagement and how do you drive higher levels of engagement and the impact that can have on the business. So to be open to those resources and think about how you can apply those in your specific role as a leader or as a manager. I will also say that trying to hire for the right talent up front becomes really important and instrumental to this strategy, right? So one of the things that I encourage is using behavioral and situational based interviewing as part of your strategy for hiring the right kind of talent. You can always teach some of those technical skills and capabilities, but fixing attitudes and culture fit, I've often found with leaders, can be a major challenge and one that's much more challenging and difficult to overcome. So make sure that you're taking time to interview for collaborative efforts, professional skills, leadership capabilities within your staff, even if they're not necessarily in a leadership role. How are they still role modeling the right kind of behaviors that are going to make them a strong cultural fit and a strong contributor for your team? I've often heard these things mentioned as soft skills. I personally am starting to never use that terminology again, and really referring to them as collaborative and leadership skills, because we found that there's nothing soft about them. They're often the most difficult skills to build over time, the most challenging to find within the market, and really important and instrumental to the success of the business. So reinforcing how can we make sure that we're not just building those skills and having good programs for leaders when they start with our company, or for even our staff level people to show up as leaders in their own capabilities, but making sure that we're hiring for the right talent. And I think that that's kind of the final point that I try to make with leaders is that you can show up as a leader in any role and any level, right? It's not necessarily I'm a manager, I'm a leader, or I'm a at this particular level or grade within the company. That's what makes me a leader. Everyone has the ability to show up as a leader in their own right, in their own capacity. How do you do that using the right kind of culture fit capabilities, the right kind of collaborative skills, the right kind of leadership skills to make sure that you are contributing to the team, that you're showing up as a leader, that you're role modeling the right kind of behaviors that you want as an employee and you expect from your leader or manager as well. That's something that anybody at any role and any level can do as well.
Yep. No, that's extremely well said. And I that can't be understated either. The skill versus will issue. And, you want to make sure that the people that you're hiring and the people that you put into leadership positions always have that underarching ability to just be a quality person, somebody that is willing to put forth the effort. You can teach them how to do certain things to your organization's needs, but you can never teach somebody how to show up on time. You can never teach somebody the communication skills. That's all stuff that is extremely important. And I agree with you. The soft skills term gets used quite a bit. It's a loose term that it's not. I don't think that term does it justice. But I like what you said. What you call it again?
Yeah, leadership or collaborative skills. I think that
Collaborative
those are much more accurate depictions of those types of skills and the impact that they can actually have on the business as well.
Yep. No, I love that. Well, Bijan, I know we could spend so much time talking about all these things, and I know that it's something that you're very passionate about, and I know from the time that we first met that you have quite a breadth of knowledge in this particular area of expertise, and so I really appreciate you coming on with us and talking about your experiences and some of the things that you've encountered in your journey. And so with that, I will give you the last word if you have any final pieces of advice or anything that you'd like to part with.
Yeah, thank you very much for the time. I've enjoyed the conversation and being able to connect and have this dialogue. It's something that I'm definitely a firm believer in, and there's lots of studies and information. I'd encourage any viewers who are interested to reach out or connect with me if you'd like the specific sources that I referenced today, or to talk a little bit more about how you could advance your leadership, your management capabilities, or the overall motivation and engagement of your teams. Be happy to connect and discuss that in more detail.
Great, Bijan. Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. And until we meet again, have a great rest of your day.
Awesome. Thank you, Rick. Take care.
Thank you.